keep having fun with what you're doing and not giving up, because I think a lot of people burn out in the sport because they're so serious about it. And obviously we're serious about it. We're obsessed with running. Like, it's what we do. We do it every day. It's like the most important part of our day. But at the same time, like, if you're not having fun and you're not going out there and like enjoying every bit of it, then yeah, it's not going to be sustainable.
Welcome to Running the Show, a podcast exploring the intersection of running and business. My name is Whitney Macon, and I'm a professional runner for Zap Endurance in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I'd like to introduce our guest, Tristin van Ord, who happens to be my teammate and training partner at Zap. Tristin has been consistently improving since she joined the team back in 2019. At the start of this year, Tristin ran an impressive 2:27:07 at the Houston Marathon for 4th overall, top American, and over a 2-minute personal best. Today we'll discuss Tristin's race at Houston and hear more about her background in the sport, from co-founding Raleigh Distance Project to going pro. We get to hear all about Zap and how she has navigated the club's recent sponsorship changes. We also discuss sustainability in the running industry today. I hope you enjoy meeting Tristin on this episode of Running the Show.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of start off at the beginning and like talking about how did Houston go? Obviously it went really well, but just tell us about the day, because you PR'd by how much?
It was like 2.5 minutes, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was good. I knew going in that I was in pretty good shape, but everyone started like about a week out. Everyone was kind of like freaking out about the weather a little bit. And you guys know from I guess Chicago in, what was it, 2021? Yeah, it was insanely hot and humid, and it was that took a lot out of me, and it was like probably the worst marathon. Like, it took everything in me just to finish that race. So I started to get a little freaked out about the weather too. But then the day before, I was talking to my coach, and he was like, you can freak out about the weather, but that is something completely out of your control. And so all you can do is just be patient in the race and kind of take it mile by mile. And he was like, on an A plus day, I might have you go out a little bit quicker. But I want you to stay pulled back a little bit, because we talked about going out in mid 5:30s per mile. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to start back in the 5:40s and just kind of see how it feels. And surprisingly, it felt really good. And I ended up catching the pace group that was trying to run. There was a bunch of girls trying to run sub 2:27. And so I ended up catching up with them around mile 10 or 11. And then a lot of people just started falling off just because it was not it was a little bit warm. It started to get a little bit warm towards the end. And then I kind of ran by myself for a little bit because the pacers kind of went back as well. So I found some guys to just latch onto, but it was really fun. It was a good day. And yeah, PR'd.
Do you remember what you told me the day before when people were talking about the weather? You said, I'm not worried. You said,
yeah.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not worried, because everyone was freaking out. And apparently a bunch of people the week before were dropping down to the half because they were like, it's not going to be fast, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so I was like, as long as it doesn't hit 70 degrees, I'm good. I'll be fine.
The thing that struck me is pretty wild. When I watched the live stream and everything, saw you come through, but I looked at the results as well, and just seeing how few women qualified for the trials at Houston, right?
Yeah.
You think of this as being one of the marquee races of the year for people to really hit that time, that 2:36 high, and just watching the live stream, was expecting to see a group come through right after, and they weren't there.
It just wasn't there. Yeah.
It just tends to speak to what your experience was. Everybody was there until they weren't.
Yeah. It was definitely that last little bit. It was definitely hot. I was so surprised that the woman who ran 2:19 on that day. I was like, she's in really, really, she's going to get the Japanese record for sure. I think she was a little bit off, but yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a struggle there towards the end, but it wasn't as bad as Chicago. And that was one of my things in my head that I kept telling myself. And I do that in hard workouts too. I'm like, this isn't Chicago 2021. This just isn't as bad as Chicago. So.
Hey, you gotta have something in your head, right? To tell yourself
exactly.
about to make the weather feel not as bad.
Yeah, this isn't that bad. Just think back to how bad you felt before.
I think one of these years we're going to need some Chicago redemption.
Oh yeah.
But for now, it's just that dark place
we can go to.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that had to feel really good to like catch the pacers too, and then be like, oh, okay, like I see how this is playing out for other people. Not that like you want to define your own race by how other people are doing, but just like, I mean, you are competing, right? And
Right,
so
right.
at the same time, like you're feeling like, oh, okay,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
catching
yeah,
that.
no, it definitely feels good. It feels really good to work with people, but then it also feels good when you're really strong and, like, you can pick it up and kind of, like, pick off people and catch people as you're going. So that was really fun. And I knew that I didn't know if I was in third or fourth, but somebody told me like you're the top American, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so I kind of knew where I was during the race, but yeah, I actually didn't know how close the woman in front of me was, like about 30 seconds ahead of me at the finish. But like I had no idea that she was that close. So I was like, man, I mean, obviously my face in the pictures at the end, like I'm working so hard. So like I don't think I could have dug out another 30 seconds, but you always look back and you're like, could I have like gone 30 seconds faster? So
I always do the thing where I'm like, what's 30 seconds over 26.2 miles? And I'm like, what was I doing? And then, but like, of course, like, that's not how it
Yeah.
works. Well, you were talking about that you went on a podcast after you ran your first marathon. So were you with the Raleigh Distance Project when you did that?
yeah. So actually, yes. So my first marathon I ran with the like I was still on the Raleigh Distance Project. And then pretty soon after that, I was when I joined Zap. That marathon kind of put me, I guess, on the radar for Pete, wanting to reach out to me. And like Raleigh Distance Project is and like was amazing, but it also wasn't. It's kind of in that space between like pro running and recreational running. Like it's in there. It's like you're getting to on the elite start lines. You're training really hard. You're doing like it's not just a hobby. It's like your passion, but you're also not getting paid. So that was after doing that, like getting the opportunity to be paid to run. That was it was a hard decision to leave the Raleigh Distance Project, but it was like an easy decision in being like, okay, if I can, do this on an even higher level, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's back up a little bit because you co founded the Raleigh Distance Project.
yeah, so the Raleigh Distance Project was it started out as just a group of friends who wanted to run together. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college. I was kind of in that weird space where I wasn't good enough to like sign a pro contract, but I really wanted to continue with the marathon and kind of see what I could do with it. And I was in a space too where I was like, I don't know if I want to go back to school yet or exactly what I want to do. So I was working at a running store. Kind of just doing little part-time things like social media for different companies, and decided that I wanted to like keep training at a high level. So it was me, Andy Cosarelli, Sarah Rapp, Aaron Clark, and Rita Dory. So we were all kind of running together, and we've been meeting up with each other in the morning to do runs. And we were all trying to make big goals, whether that was like qualifying for the Olympic trials or qualifying for Boston. We decided to get together and start that group. We had some connections with Wazelle. Andy Cosarelli had been running for Wazelle, so we reached out to them, and they were like super excited about it. We wanted to be, sort of our mission statement was like, we wanted to be that group that was trying to do big things and running on the elite level, but also really connecting with the community. And so we had a lot of events where we would meet up with Healing Transitions, which is an addiction recovery group. We would go run with them sometimes, and then we would also do some 6 a.m. runs starting at Cup of Joe in Raleigh, where everyone could come run and meet us there, and kind of had our workouts open and just open for people to follow our journey and kind of run with us. So that was the mission statement there, and they've done an amazing job keeping it going. So I'm really proud of it.
Has the growth exceeded your expectations, or is it about like what you thought, like when you first started it? Like what do you think now?
Yeah, honestly, I think it has, because now, so they're with Tracksmith now, and they've continued to grow even more and add more members to the team. And Stephen First is the coach. He ran at NC State, and he's coaching with them now, and he's done an amazing job coaching all of these women to their goals. And I think when it started, we were still doing the same things like running and making those community connections and stuff. But now I think they've grown like even more of a following to the point where I think they're really making a difference, especially in the Raleigh running community, really connecting with people. So
I'm curious. I was just seeing you on the only the pro side of things. That's when I met you, and I'm wondering at what point during your time with Raleigh Distance Project did you start thinking about that next step of pro running, and how you started to dream that, and kind of when that happened in relation to coming to Zap.
yeah, I think, well, running has always been something where I've worked really hard and I've always wanted to do it to the best of my ability in the highest level. And I think now I've gained more confidence, that I can run at the highest level. But I think during during that time, it was more of like I thought that maybe one day I was like I can maybe one day I'll be able to do this and be a professional. But it just I I wasn't I didn't have enough training under my belt to have that confidence yet in the marathon, and I think the marathon is really where I found my confidence. And so going into that very first marathon with Raleigh Distance Project, and qualifying for the trials at the time, I ran 240, and I think that was a very, very conservative like goal for me. Like I just wanted to qualify for the trials, but I think the moment I qualified for the Olympic trials and did it, and I don't want to say easily, but like getting that goal and being like, oh, I think I can run a lot faster than this. I think once I ran my first marathon with Raleigh Distance Project was when I was like, okay, I think maybe I can kind of, have these bigger dreams.
A question I have for you relates to that 240 at Grandma's, your debut. I know you mentioned it was about getting that time and building that confidence, finishing that race. But something that comes to mind is back at that time, there was the question of the A standard and the B standard. And that's something just for folks who aren't familiar, right? In that qualifying period for the Olympic trials for the marathon, there were two different times that could be used to qualify, right? It was 237 was the A standard, and then the B standard was 245, just under both of those. Were you cognizant of those standards? Did they play any role? And how did you kind of view them before and after the race as those objective standards, quote unquote?
Yeah, so I actually when at that time I originally wanted to do my debut at CIM, and I that was like my goal. Like I had talked to Steve, and he was like, I think high 230s is like actually doable for you. And then I ended up getting my very first like stress fracture that I ever had. I got a stress fracture in my sacrum, and that kind of like took me out for a while. And then once we were like, okay, well, you kind of, and I don't want to say Grandma's was like the last chance, but it was like one of the last marathons that I realistically like had time to train for and like get a trials mark in, which is really what I wanted to do. So at that time, I think I was just kind of desperate to like get under 245, because I was like, okay, I was just injured and I couldn't run for months, and I was just like swimming and biking. And then now going into my first marathon, I'm only running like around 60 to 70 miles per week. Like I wasn't really running very much mileage. And so I think it was really smart that like my coach at the time was like, hey, I think, just be really conservative and go out, at 240s, like low 240s pace, and kind of see what happens. And I do think, the ultimate goal would have been to get the A standard, but it was at the time it was like kind of crunch time for that. So yeah.
And one note there, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Emma, you ran the trials as well, right? I think we found out pretty early on in that qualification window that they were going to pay for travel for the B standard runners as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember early on in the qualification window, it's like the A standard was kind of for people who thought they could make the Olympic team. And if I wasn't there, then they were going to pay for my travel, pay for my hotel, even if I only ran the B standard. And so I think it may have been unique during that build up to Atlanta where the pressure was kind of off there.
There was a lot
like
less
there wasn't
pressure
as
to
much
get,
of a difference in like what you were getting out of that race experience. So I know I felt like the pressure was off, which at the time they definitely had already announced that the travel budget was covered.
We definitely knew. I think like I realistically would have like reached more or been like, I think I can run faster, but also like you never know what's going to happen in your first marathon. So I also was really just nervous for that. I was like, I haven't even run 26 miles yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, just kind of see what happens. Yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of forgot
exactly.
about that, I completely forgot about that. Just like over the years that they were paying for the B and the A standard, and there was a difference in that. And like, it was going to make or break, well, for some people, like make or break whether or not they went to the trials, just because of how much money they were giving. So, oh, little,
Yeah, Atlanta really like went all out with that. So
yeah.
they spent a lot.
Yeah. I've,
So before that, each standard had to pay their own way, right? Is that correct?
In like
For like the
2016.
2016 trials.
In 2016,
That's what I
the
thought.
B
I don't
standard.
know.
for B standard, yes. I believe, I'm trying to think, because I got the B standard in 2016, and I feel like I remember paying my way for it. Or they might have done like, I could be wrong, but I want to say that they were willing to give like a hotel and maybe some like flight reimbursement for the A standard. And then they might have done like some room and board reimbursement for the B standard. So like there was a clear difference between the A and the B, but I can't remember exactly what it was now, but it was something to that nature. So, but yeah, for Atlanta, it was just like, great, everyone's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool.
It's super cool. I guess like while we're on the topic, because this is more of an abstract question than a specific to like race performance or experience there. But when you look at that experience and how they made, let's maybe to use the word accessible, that experience of the travel reimbursement going to anyone who hit it, as opposed to this year when the emphasis is on a time so much faster than the previous. I think some thoughts that come to mind is like inaccessible or just, the standard being way too fast. So now in this qualifying period, which not a problem for you at all, Tristin, is 237 is the former A standard is now the standard in this qualifying cycle. Do you have any opinions or thoughts on that kind of development in that direction for time?
So I feel like I have mixed feelings about it because I think, like looking at back in Atlanta, like and hearing people talk about how, how many people there were and like how expensive it was and all of that. Like I understand wanting to like cut it back a little bit. But at the same time, and like it's funny because when I was thinking about like problems with the industry or whatever, and I actually listened to y'all's like first episode, and you were talking about kind of like that inaccessibility, and I literally was like, that is like kind of part of the sport that I think needs to change. Like that I was telling Whitney earlier, I was like, okay, if you're recreationally playing, some other sport, who all the pros are in this sport and everything, and there's like more of a connection, I feel like. And I feel like now it's our sport is kind of becoming like elitist in that way, but then part of me is like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because you do want it to be small enough that there is that like star power with the elites or whatever, but you also want it to be accessible enough that people are actually going to care, and like everyday runners are going to want to get in on it too. So I don't know, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's hard because like you want like to put, like I kind of talked about in like the first episode, like you kind of want the star power for running to put running on the map like you have with the NBA and like the MLB and and soccer. Like you want that star power so you can like put it on the map, but then also at the same time, like my point was that like you can still run the same race as Des Linden does in the Boston Marathon. So it's like it is accessible, but yet for us to like make it big, quote unquote, it's hard because you do need that star power. So you do need it to be a I hate to say this, you do need it to be a little
Yeah.
elitist for that star power to
Yeah.
happen. And that's where I had kind of mixed
Mhm.
feelings on it too. Cause like even as someone who's a 240 marathoner, like I'm like, okay, well, I don't have the standard. And so it's like, and it's a question like, am I going to get the standard? Like, I like to think I will, but it's also at the same time, like, I'm like, do I have mixed feelings because I'm on the other side of it? Or do I have mixed feelings because of my feelings about the sport in general? And sometimes it's hard for someone like me. Well, it's hard for me to sort of differentiate between those two things. But but it's hard because I want the sport to grow. But at the same time, I'm like, but I want it to grow with me
Right.
too.
Right. Exactly. No, and and I really admire like people like Kira D'Amato for me comes to mind because she's like so accessible, but also like I feel like she replies to people's DMs and like she talks to people and she like wants to get people involved, but then also like people look to her as like this big star in the sport. And I think it's like really I think that's really important. Like her social media platform and like what she does. Like I went and watched the cross country championships in Richmond. Like my teammate and boyfriend Andrew just did really well. He got second there and made the team. And Kira was there and was like going around talking to people, and she was like helping announce it and stuff. And people obviously were like, "Oh my gosh, it's Kira D'Amato! Like she's amazing," but also she's there like talking to people. And I think that that's what's really cool about our sport is that you know you have people that at the top that are kind of like famous in the running world, but they're not famous enough that they're getting like bombarded by paparazzi, but they're also like can go to events like this and will talk to people and can be accessible in that way. So like I think that is good, but then at the same time like we want track and field to be like the NBA or something like that where the top of the sport are like have that star power like you said. So
Has that inspired you to answer your Instagram DMs now?
yeah, I also like am really bad at like replying to texts and DMs and everything. So if I ever don't reply to anyone's DM, it's not personal. It's that I like am that person that will open someone's text and then reply like a week later. So
Well, I did see on one of your Instagram stories, like a compilation post of you and then a couple of your other teammates wearing Nikes, and you had said, "Yeah, we're not sponsored by On anymore." So, can you tell us about that? Like, describe that transition from being sponsored by On to no longer being sponsored by On. Um, and then like the shoe transition. Actually, let's just talk about the transition with the sponsorship first, and then we'll get to the shoes.
yeah. So, well, a lot of people were obviously like I mean I try not to go look on Let's Run, but people were like, "Why are these On athletes wearing blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Okay, I need to like just address this really quick because no one's talking about it because we're all wearing the kit because it says Zap on it, and we wanted to wear a kit that said Zap on it.
Of course, yeah.
And so obviously it was On, and then we weren't wearing On shoes. But anyway, the Zap is it's kind of like a blessing and a curse with Zap because it's like we exist outside of having a sponsor. So
Hmm.
Zap is like its own thing. It's not like On didn't create Zap or like Reebok when we were sponsored by Reebok. Like Reebok didn't make Zap. Like we existed before having a sponsor. So I feel like it's good because it's like more stable in that way, but then it's also bad because I feel like it makes us I don't want to say makes us less desirable, but it's like if a company sponsors us, it's like they're genuinely just sponsoring us. They're not like picking who the coaches are and picking who the athletes are and all that stuff. Because I feel like a lot of groups, it's like, okay, with with the OAC, it's like that is On's group. Like On made that group. So it's been a weird, I wouldn't say it's like been a weird transition because I joined Zap like after they had been sponsored by On. So I didn't really see like what the process was like going from Reebok to On, but that was kind of seamless. Like it went straight from Reebok to On, and now we're kind of in this space where it's like we don't really know what's going to happen. But yeah, but Zap is, um, regardless of, I would say it's not sustainable for Zap in the long term to not have a sponsor, but the point of Zap is we have camps, we have donors, we're a nonprofit, like we connect with the community and we have our Zap community, and that's like kind of where our base is. So we do exist outside of that sponsor, if that makes
Did
sense.
that affect your race at all, being unattached just these last few weeks? Did you feel differently in the race? Did you have different motivations, or was that out of your mind?
I mean, yeah, honestly, like it did. And like I'm sure you probably did too. Like running in the half, it's like okay, we're kind of this blank slate right now. So it's like okay, I got to run fast. so that Zap can get a sponsor and we can kind of keep doing our thing. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Like, so it's more like you would be looking for a group sponsorship, not an individual sponsorship, correct?
Yeah, and I think that that's the ultimate goal would be to find a sponsor for Zap, and then that would be like because our contracts are like not with a company, they're with Zap. So I think the ultimate goal would be, and they have a board of directors and everything, and I think that that's their ultimate goal is to find a sponsor for the group. And I think that if that maybe like it would be in discussion maybe for us to get individual sponsorships later, but I think yeah, the ultimate goal would be to have like one cohesive sponsor for the group.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I see. Well, the first time I learned about the camp side of things was through Whitney, like through how we interact and how we work together. Could both of you speak to the camp side of what Zap does?
Yeah. Well, I can start and then you can add on too, because we both have been, camps were out for a while. Because of COVID and stuff, but now they're full back. So Whitney and I kind of like were thrown into it together for our first couple camps. But Zap hosts adult running camps. So it's basically like everything you would think of in like a running retreat or camp, but it's geared towards adults versus like high school kids could come, I guess, but versus usually people running marathons. We have a marathon camp, we have 10K half marathon camp focused group, but yeah, we have it at a super nice resort. So I guess that's not like a camp because it's at Chitola Resort here in town, but yeah, it's at
You're glamping.
yeah
Fine.
nice food, nice resort, but
Some-
all focused on running.
Sometimes they call it camp, sometimes they call it a running vacation
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
it definitely is
Mhm.
meant to be a really enjoyable, relaxing time with also some community with fellow runners, as well as some information about, your run training. So we have a session where we do yoga and a session where we do core, but it's very laid back and optional. And then one run a day, maybe longer, maybe shorter, and all very flexible for people. But it's a way for runners to get to know each other, train together, while also kind of getting to enjoy running on its own, away from the rest of their lives. So that's why we kind of market it as that vacation, because we want our campers to continue to love running and not see it as a chore. So having it with the backdrop of a vacation, a resort, the beautiful mountains of North Carolina, it's kind of um, helps running to stay in that happy, enjoyable space. And then we get to know all these Zap,
Awesome people.
campers who look up to us a lot, and we look up to them for spending their vacation running. So
Yeah, and
it's a
it's like
mutual
we're
respect.
also like we are like camp count, like it's part of our contract is that we like work the camps and we're like camp counselors basically. I mean, obviously we're not like looking after children, but like
Right.
we have to show up and do like a Q&A or like show up at meals and help with driving people and doing stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that our contract is not just to run fast. It's like, okay, you got to run fast, but you also have to be at camp and you know I mean, it's really fun. Like that's my dream. My dream job is like being a forever camp counselor. So
Well, when Tristan mentioned, professional runners being in their community, accessible to people around them, and I think the camps set us up to be able to connect with people who are near and far to this area, and then we end up seeing a lot of Zap campers at races throughout the
Mhm.
year. Um, we have several campers in Houston, and it's you really get to know them well during the camp sessions, and then we will see them at races. We'll meet them for dinner. It's super I guess it kind of accelerates the relationship being at this running camp with those of fellow runners, and you feel like you've known them for a long time. So we love our Zap community, and we love seeing them throughout the year as well.
Yeah, after Houston, the one of our campers had a party and they rented a frozen margarita machine. So that was like our first stop after after
That is
Houston.
a highlight. It is
Yeah.
great.
Do you guys have any like diehards who like repeat campers?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have people that like Fred Fidua from Chicago has been
Shout
coming
out to
from
Fred.
yeah, shout out to Fred. He has a TikTok.
Shut up, Fred.
He sends us frozen pizzas from Chicago every year too. But
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
great. He's been like how many times? Like probably like 20 years or something. I don't even know.
I mean, I
Maybe
think
not.
the camps have existed for a little over 20, and then COVID took one or two away. But there are people who have been to every camp session, or maybe 99% of them. A few campers, and some of these campers only see their camp friends at camp, and it's so sweet when they like
Yeah.
have their week with their friends year after year. Yeah, it makes me want to be at camp in 20 years.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so cool because it's like the camp gives, obviously like a connection to the community, but it gives you a platform to build your personal brands and build these personal connections like in the space. And I think about how that relates back to our conversation we were just starting about like the role that a brand can play with Zap. When you think of like the exposure for a brand, camps, I think a lot of folks who have had like the pleasure and like the privilege of going to a run camp when they were growing up, it was in a lot of cases sponsored by a major brand that was bringing product in and you were exposed to certain things. So I imagine that's just an additional asset the team can provide and say, hey, we also do these camps. This is a perfect product placement or, education point for our people as well.
Oh yeah, and they're like the Zap campers too are like they're like die hard like whoever we're sponsored by that's like they like wear it. Like they're
Oh,
like
I
this
love
is what
that.
you wear.
Yeah.
They're
So
on vacation, so they're like ready to buy. Like there was a sweatshirt that Tristan and I had, and a camper was like, "I want that," and then the next day she's like, "I bought that."
yeah, I bought it online.
Like it's
Yeah.
really the whole setup is very conducive to, yeah, getting not just getting people exposed, but converting them to buy. So
Yeah.
That's great. They just come to Camp Zap and just enter buyer's mode.
Oh yeah,
Like,
we
exactly.
have products at camp. We don't like make it about that, but it's an option. It's like if you want to purchase a pair of shoes while you're here, Zap gear that you can wear at home and remember. Um, I mean, just like any vacation, you might get a memorable piece, and that it always includes products from our sponsor. So
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
yeah. Yeah. So, okay, speaking of products, so what made you decide to race in the next percents at Houston?
So I tried a couple different shoes. Basically, we had the on a very early on flat. We did not have the most recent flat. That was the like I their new flat's great. We did not have them in our size, and so we kind of were at the point where it was like, all right, I guess we're gonna try some different stuff out. And I actually tried the Alpha Fly, which because I was like, well, everyone, this is like what everyone chooses. So I tried those on. They felt weird to me. I did like one workout in them, and I was like, I don't really like the way that these feel. And then I had yeah, exactly. I was like, these are weird. Like I felt like I had suction cups on my feet or something. So then I tried the what did I wear? The vapor flies. I get confused. Okay, the vapor flies. And those were the ones that I was the most comfortable in. So yeah. And it was actually a super last minute thing because I thought that I was gonna wear the alpha flies because I was like, oh, they're the fastest ones. Like I'm gonna wear them, whatever. And then I did the workout in them, and it was like my last workout before Houston, and I was like, I can't race in these. Like I can't do it. And so I like last minute got them shipped to the hotel, and I was like freaking out to Whitney the whole time. I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna get here in time.
Well,
Like I don't know what I'm gonna
the
wear.
first company canceled your order.
And the company
It was
canceled
very
my order
stressful.
like the next day, and I was like, oh my god. So I'm like last minute. Yeah, shout out to Running Warehouse. That's where I got them.
Yeah. We got
Because
shout out
they
to
didn't
Fred.
order. They sent it very quick. Yeah. So
Okay.
There's
Shout out
always
to
that
Fred.
great
Shout out to Running
yeah.
Warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whitney, what did you wear for the half?
Yeah.
Same. I got a pair of Vaporflies. Yeah, I before Zap, that's what I ran in, and I just knew they worked for my feet. So I haven't really played around very much. So I joined Zap in summer of 2021, and so before that, I could try out whatever I wanted. But there weren't some of the other brands of flats weren't as competitive as they are now. I think so. Now we can try out some other brands, right?
I know we can just try them all.
If
Yeah.
I could back us up too, I think like an interesting thing for you both that you experienced prior to this, prior to Houston, and you get the chance to experiment with all the new tech. Going into the relationship that you both have with Zap at the time, you had to wear those shoes. I see like the Instagram posts, everything that you posted publicly was in those shoes, as you do when you're an athlete. How is that process of adjusting to that, right? Like you had to choose from the buffet of options, but you are subject to what they offer to some extent.
Yeah, I guess for me, with picking Zap, and like knowing that they were sponsored by On, Zap was really like the everything about it to me was perfect, and I didn't really like, I don't want to say I didn't care about the shoes, but like I knew that On was coming out with like a super shoe eventually, and I actually ran my first marathon in like the New Balance 1400s, which are like nothing, and so I was like, I can run a
Those
marathon
are
in
like
whatever, it's
tiny.
fine. So that was I didn't really like think like too much about it. I was mostly like, these coaches are like who I want to be with. Like these people are who I want to be with. I want to be like here in North Carolina in the mountains. And so I guess it wasn't really like that much of a factor to me, like picking or I didn't really think about it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you? Was that like
Um, Having run unattached for several years before joining Zap, I was just super excited to have support and a team, and I I didn't have a whole lot of offers. So for me, I didn't really have a choice to pick a group that had a shoe that I wanted. So it couldn't be a factor. But it was fine. The shoes were a lot better when I joined Zap than I recall the On shoes being a few years back when I had been working run specialty. So having seen that progress, I felt good about the offerings at the time. But it's certainly tough. I mean, everyone has injuries come up, and when those are related to your feet, it can be tough to be confined to certain styles of shoes. I know with I had some Achilles insertional stuff last summer and was having to play around with different styles, and it's yeah, I think it's too bad that doesn't seem like a conversation that pros really are allowed to have. That if their brand that sponsors them, if they don't work with some injury they have, that's not something they can talk about. Like these shoes aren't working, but I'm sure that that's the reality for plenty of pros out there who are pushing through aches and pains. I don't know how to fix that, but it's kind of it would yeah, it's tough knowing that problem is there and that it's not, you can't talk about it.
Right? You can't be like, oh, thanks so much for sponsoring us, but like these shoes suck. Like you can't
yeah,
say
yeah.
that.
Or I can't run in them right now because I have some limitations, you know?
Yeah, well, before On came out with their their carbon fiber shoe, they actually like told us, they were like, we don't have a carbon fiber shoe right now. Like you guys, if you black out the logo, can wear whatever you want at the trials, and that was in 2020. And so I really respect that they did that, because they were like, we don't have something that can compete right now, so like you guys can wear whatever you want, just like make sure that the logo's not on it. So I know that like a lot of brands would not like even think about saying that, but they were like, we want you guys to perform, and we haven't caught up yet. So yeah,
What'd you guys wear at the trial?
the blacked out
Yeah.
vapor
I
flies.
was I
Yeah.
was on it. I was running for Tracksmith, so
Oh, right, you weren't
I
at the
wore
trials.
Vaporflies.
Yeah, you were at the trials, so you weren't with Zap
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
trials. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting thing because I know, in the same conversation, right, there were pictures of people online, and it almost seemed like social media was trying to bastardize this decision, where you were given the opportunity to do that, and I like the way that you're framing it. Of they told us it was okay because it was the best option for us to perform at our best, and that must feel really good as an athlete. Just to see. But like on the flip side, it's unfortunate that I feel like some people would post pictures of On athletes with spray painted shoes and be like, make a big deal out of it,
Yeah.
which to some extent probably feels like unfair to the athlete. It's not fair to paint someone in the light like you're not cheating. This is like, it's clearly allowed. I think of even when like Klecker, another on athlete, and Alicia Monson, right? They were wearing track spikes, obviously, because there was no track spike that existed at the time.
Mhm.
And that was around the time that they came out with the unbranded Dragonfly.
Yeah.
Which,
Yep.
what were your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that was from being in a space where you didn't have the option to choose something in your buffet of shoes? What are your thoughts on this unbranded Dragonfly, unbranded shoe option?
I feel like that's like a weird flex or power move on their part. Like, it's like everyone knows what these are. I mean, I don't
That's
know.
It's like the only people who care would still know. So what are
Yeah.
they getting at? It's like the same very narrow runner nerd. So I think weird flex is a good word.
Yeah, exactly. I think like Martin did something like that too. Like they were like unbranded gel packet or something.
Yeah. I mean, more power to you if you know that's your position in the market, but it's
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of like smart on their part, right? Like they're like, we're good enough that people don't want to know, or people know who we are, but they can't.
they don't even
I don't
need the
know.
logo.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
We don't care about this logo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
it's really
you have
interesting.
being on a team that's affiliated with the brand, did you have any opportunity to test product or, try things out and provide that feedback for something that you could maybe wear one day?
Yeah, we were actually super involved with like when Nicole Blood was working with On, like she was working with On for a while and then left to coach, and then I think now she's back with them. But she was like our main contact in the beginning, and she was like her and Andrew Weeding were like we talked to them all the time. Like they sent us like prototypes. We were in conversation with them, like with the original carbon fiber shoe. Like they sent us prototypes, and they had a whole thing where we could go onto this platform and give our thoughts and take notes and everything. So we were pretty involved in that at first. And then yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, she was like our main, like we were like her team that she had kind of like, we were their, I don't know if I guess we were their first pro road group, and she was our main contact with that. And then she left to go coach, which is what she wanted to do. And after that, we kind of lost a little bit of the communication, but at first we were definitely really involved in that.
That's really cool. So did you feel like, so when you were, so going back to like Camp Zap, like when the products were actually there, did like, it felt like, I mean, not that you guys would be disingenuous, but like it felt very like genuine to be like, no, like these are great shoes. Like we actually know because you were a part of that development phase.
Yeah, no, it was really cool because we were part of like kind of helping them develop some of their products, and like we were the people that were testing it out. So it was cool to be like super involved in a brand, and then have people like campers that would come and be super interested in that, and want to buy that product, especially since we were helping them out with that.
when you talk about giving feedback, did that excite you, or did you feel like that was took extra time at the when you were in that relationship with the brand? I'm curious, as a professional, was that a bonus, or was that
No,
like
I
a
liked it a
drag?
lot. I thought it was really cool. Like I like being involved with the brand. Like I think having a relationship with people high up in the brand, and you're working like develop a product. I think that's cool, and I think that should be part of being a professional athlete, is being in contact with them and helping them with their products. So, yeah. I mean, you're kind of working for them, right? It's like you're an on employee.
Yeah, no,
You're
I agree.
promoting their product. So, yeah.
Well, how many different kinds of shoes have you guys gone through since there's no longer an affiliation with On?
Um I guess just honestly, I am not picky with my feet, so I not like I need to try different things. Like I have some On shoes left over right now, so I'm in there. I'm in the On Cloud Go right now. It's a great shoe. I've been wearing it. But the racing shoes, yeah, I guess it's been trying the Alpha Fly and then kind of going back to the Vaporfly. That was my little like testing moment with the different brand. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so recent, I guess. You
Yeah.
just had the one race.
Yeah, it was like just this year
Yeah.
that we found out. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, the Cloud
So this is very
Mhm.
early days.
the Cloud Go is a new model that has been great for my Achilles, so I'm still running on those too. But we'll see what happens. But we did, like I said, the product was improving to the point where we were comfortable in
Mhm.
their shoes. So
For some more generic questions to throw at you, I know we've gone like pretty hard in the paint on that experience, but I know through some research that your degree at App State was in sustainable development. Tristan. Can you give us like a little bit of like an intro on exactly what that is? Because I think I emailed you being like, I think I know what that is, but I'm not exactly sure what that entails.
Yeah. So sustainable development, it's kind of that crossroads of like environmental studies and economics and like humanitarian studies. Like it's a lot of it's kind of focusing on how basically we can preserve our earth and our people and kind of make it this one harmonious place. So I basically hippie studies is what I did.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I just think it's super cool that you have that background and working with On. They have sustainability as a part of their mission, right? I remember they had the recyclable shoe that you would send back after a certain amount of miles. Like that must resonate with you with that background. Like, what would you say?
I was actually going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I think that that's really, really cool. There's there's a there's a term called planned obsolescence, which is kind of like products are made that could be a lot more durable than they are, but they're kind of made to break so that we have to buy more and newer things, or they're made to go out of style and you have to buy the newest thing. And I think what's really cool about On is that they have that cyclone shoe where you can wear it and you're wearing the shoe and you're sending it back, and then they're recycling it and sending you another shoe. It's like a shoe subscription, which I think is a really, really cool idea. Um, when I was working in, the running store where that I was working in right after college, you're kind of always pressured to sell people more and more. I mean, like in any business. And they would tell you, your sports bra shouldn't see a birthday, or you need to get a new pair of shoes after like 300 miles. And it's like, well, you could probably go 500 miles and still be good in your shoe. And I have sports bras that I've been wearing since high school that are
Same.
fine.
Yeah.
But you're kind of always that consumerism in running is like so, and especially people who are just getting started with running, they're like, what products do I need? Like, I need gels. It's like, no, you don't. You're running a 5K. Like, you don't need gels. You don't need plastic water bottles. You don't need, you need a couple sports bras. You can rewear them. You can have them for a couple years, and then some good running shoes. So I think there is. I mean, I guess, and it's like in any market, but just the all of that consumerism and that planned obsolescence of products is definitely a problem. I think right now in the running industry and just in every industry. But yeah.
That's a great hot take.
Yeah.
Or a great global warming take.
Yeah. Great
For that matter.
even take.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the take.
Well, with marathon training, it's like all the shoes that we go through, and I try to wear them out until, I don't want to get injured or anything, but I'm like, gosh, like, where do these go? Like, I try to donate them, but I'm like, I have 50 pairs of shoes. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with these or like where they're going to go. But I think, yeah, I mean, the idea of being able to kind of have a shoe subscription and, send your shoes back so that they can get recycled. I think that's something that other brands could probably hop on and make into a bigger thing. So,
Do you have any other ideas on how to make running a more sustainable sport with your background?
yeah. I guess I think I really admire, I don't know about like any brand new ideas, but I really admire the brands that are making like a true honest effort in making quality products and, you know, actually having ideas with sustainability and trying to use recycled materials or stuff. Like, I look at John G. I think that's a really cool brand that's doing a lot for like people and the environment. And I think they have some really good ideas. And I've also thought about like the, on big marathon weekends and stuff, like I guess all the waste and all the trash. I don't know how that would, I mean, like Whitney and I, after Rotterdam, the next morning we're like walking down the street and there was just like clothing like and trash like on the street. And we were like, I wonder what, like, it'd be really great if people could like take all these layers of clothing and like donate them. I don't know if they already do that. Maybe they do, but having some sort of like donation or recycling process after like big road races.
There's a big road race that does that, and I'm like completely blanking on it now. But there is one that does donate everything that gets thrown into the streets.
Yeah, that's a cool idea because there's so much. That's like something you don't think about, like the next day we're walking down the street and I'm like, there's clothes like all over the ground. Like what do they do with these? So I think
I had like my first like big taste of that at CIM this year when I was spectating and doing some bottles for some of my teammates, and some of the course water bottle or water cup, volunteers were actually had like rakes and they were raking back the cups, and I was just like, oh my
you're
god,
like, that's so many.
yes,
Yeah.
and like I've never seen it from that side, so I was just like, this is so wild that there's so much garbage that they're like literally using brakes, which also was like really ingenious because then when people were coming through the water stops, like they were able to like obviously make it clear for everybody, which I was like, oh, that's like super smart. But also I cannot believe there's like so much waste with just like
Yeah.
the cups here.
And it's weird too, because we're like, all of us are like somewhere near the front and we don't really see like
Mm-hmm.
kind of all of that, like that happens.
The trash.
Yeah, all the trash and all the.
And I'm sure every single bottle and cup is getting recycled. Like for that big of an
Yeah.
event, you just wonder how many bags of trash, and there's no, I don't know, regulation for that, obviously, but it's like I don't even want to know how much because there's so much.
Yeah.
There are some trail races that I'm familiar with that require you to bring your own reusable cup. Like Solomon makes like a collapsible cup for aid stations, and I think it's a really great option, especially for that distance and discipline, because it's something you're using so often. It's usually you're competing at a pace where you can kind of more leisurely come through an aid station. I'm just picturing like you both in Houston, like blasting through an aid station with a reusable cup and somebody throwing like a, thing of water at you.
Me up.
Oh man,
Yeah.
we're not good at drinking cups.
Yeah.
No, I do feel bad. The like, couple times a year we run marathons. I'm like, gotta buy these plastic bottles, and then I try to throw them like right near a trash can where I like know it's gonna be like taken care of. But
Right.
yeah.
I just do, I just go and buy like a 6-pack of like the water bottles, like the plastic water bottles.
Oh
At the
yeah.
store.
Yeah.
Cause I'm just like, oh, they're cheap, and they're like cheaper than like ordering like the 6-pack of like the straw ones on Amazon. And I don't really have like much trouble with bottles. So like I just go to the grocery store and buy the like 6-pack of water bottles. But yeah, I do the same thing where I like try to throw it in like the trash or try and throw it like near the trash can.
Yeah.
Just like
It's
sport in
Kristen, what's your hack? What bottles do you use?
Oh yeah, so we use like condiment bottles, like ketchup, like condiment ketchup bottles. Those are the best because you like don't get air bubbles in them, and it's just like one straight flow that you can
It's
get.
good. I just tried it at the half.
Yeah.
I took fluids because it was so sweaty, but Tristan and her condiment bottles, they are the best.
Do you get them in the yellow and red?
So no, they're actually clear. The ones that they're like 97 cents. They're just like clear condiment bottles. I actually for grandma's, I only found like there was ketchup, mustard, and mayo ones, and I was like, I don't want to be like thinking about drinking mayo. So I like put tape over the thing. It was like labeled like mayo. I was like, no, it's not mayo.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, I'm so glad that you
Yeah,
knew
but it
that.
literally had the words written on it too. I was like, this kind of probably.
But it's worth it
disgusting,
because
but
of
it's
how
fine.
easy it is
Yeah.
to drink out of those.
Yeah, but just especially at a time where like especially like late stages in the marathon, it's so tough
Oh
to get
yeah.
down fluids, and then you're like drinking out of like a mayo bottle.
Yeah, I was like, I had practiced with it a couple times, so but the first couple times I was like, this is weird. Like my yeah.
So, are you taking some downtime now? Like, what does now look like for you after you just had this big performance in Houston? Where do you go from here?
Right now, I am looking forward to. I just found out today that I'm going to be doing some track, some yeah, something like 10Ks, 5Ks, I think, and maybe some like shorter road races mixed in. Um, but I was talking about this with Whitney this morning because we're living together right now. Well, we live together anyway, but we had a pipe burst in our house, and we're living in someone else's apartment right now. It's a whole thing. Um, but I was like, I really just like to take my down like couple weeks, like super down. Like I'm like waking up at 11. I'm like drinking coffee before I eat anything in the morning, like not hydrating, just like, whatever, eating whatever I want. Not that I mean, I'm never like super strict with what I eat, but I'm like, M&M's for breakfast? Sure, like let's do it. So, taking like super down like week and a half and just kind of running whenever I want. And then I think at the beginning of next week I'm going to be like, all right, now we're locked in again doing some stuff on the track and on the road. So, yeah.
For the record, today she told me she was ready to train again. So
I did. I was like, I'm
the
getting
break is working.
antsy now.
That's
The break
what
is
you need.
working.
That's what the break is
Yeah.
for. Get you ready to go.
Exactly. And that's another thing too, like everyone, not just pros, but like everyone after you run a marathon, like you got to have a little bit of a break in there. Just like full break thing, eating all the food, drinking alcohol, doing whatever. Yeah.
I think like no matter like how the race goes too, where I think like a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people like might have a bad performance and want to just jump right back on the horse and be like, no, like I'm going to prove it to myself that like I can do this and I'm going to keep training and then I'm going to go and jump into another marathon like a couple months from now. But I think like no matter, just my personal opinion,
Oh, I totally agree. Like, I feel like you need to celebrate, like, even if it's not a good race, it's like you got to celebrate like everything that got you to that point, Like you were like no matter what level you're at, if you're running a marathon and you're serious about your training, like it's not sustainable to just keep that through year round. You have to have a little bit of that downtime. So,
Yeah, and to brag on Tristin, she hasn't run marathons super close together. She always takes her time with that, and you'll notice that her progress has been quite steady, and that's because she really is patient with that. And um, some people who, like you said, might want to prove it to themselves sooner than later. They might not see that kind of steady progress, and Tristin is a great example of taking your time, being patient with it, and seeing that progress, way more steady growth than if she'd rushed into it, I think.
well, you too. I mean, like
Yeah, I'm getting there
joining
too.
Zap, like it was a big transition, like for you joining
Mhm.
Zap, like off of not, going from like not having any support to like being a pro
Yeah,
athlete, like, and you really just like trusted your training, listened to Pete,
right.
and have done really well.
Chicago
So
2021, that our really hard day. We didn't race again until the next April.
mhm.
So, and we both PR'd. And I think some people in that fall marathon rut, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do the next one," or like CIM is always the one you like tack on,
Right.
which is, I'm sure some people know that that's what they need to do. But definitely for our setup with our team, we feel like spacing them out more has been good for us, and it
Yeah.
certainly works so far. So.
Well, Whitney, what's up next for you?
I am running Rotterdam again this spring.
Oh,
So,
great. Okay.
yeah, it was a great experience for both of us last year. And the the drawback is that I will be doing a marathon build without Tristin, but
I know.
we have
Anne Marie.
we have a new teammate, Anne Marie Tuxbury, is going to be running Rotterdam with me. So we'll be doing a lot of training together, and then hopefully I'll join for some shorter stuff later this spring and this summer. Get out on the roads.
Yeah. Rotterdam, highly recommend if anyone like
Yes,
that
underrated.
race it is so much fun. It's like a fast course. Like the people in the Netherlands are like so nice.
It's great crowd support, very exciting, tons of cheering, but not as much pressure as a major. Yeah, so fun.
Yeah, I went there. Noah raced it in 2019, my husband, and he did not have a good day. He would say that. But I can attest that the crowd support there is super great. And I think Richie, his coach, and I ended up running like something like 16 miles, like trying to like catch him everywhere around the course and everything.
That's amazing.
And it was just like the spectator support was awesome. So I remember going there and being like, oh yeah, I could definitely see myself doing this someday. Like this would be a good one.
Yeah.
We practically ran the
Oh,
marathon.
I practically ran the marathon.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Incredible.
last thing about Rotterdam, our coach, Pete, he was like, yeah, the night before the race, he was like, I'm gonna rent one of those Vespa scooters out on the street so that I can like see you guys at all these different spots during the run. And we were like, okay. And like that night to Whitney, I was like, so like if we're running and we see him like fall off or like crash into something, like we should just keep running, right? Like as a joke. And then the next day we didn't see him on the course at all. And he comes limping up to us after the race with like ripped up jeans, like his knees bleeding. And we were like, what happened? And he was like, literally 2 minutes after the race started, I drove into a fence and fell off. I was
so
like,
sad.
Poor Pete.
oh, poor
Yeah.
Pete. Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
No, it was bad.
Idea that he's just like, oh, I got this great idea. Like you guys
Yeah, and then we both was like,
He had
I
he had
don't
my
know.
husband on the phone because my husband thought he could like call him live, see how we're doing, and Pete was like, no, like we both can just check the live splits because I don't.
He
know
like
where
went
they
back to the hotel.
Oh my God.
But he met us at the finish, so it was fine.
Yeah. I think he would make that sacrifice again for his athletes to run well.
Yeah, exactly. He still wears those jeans too. Like they're like, and he still wears them. Like
It's the
those
style.
are the jeans.
It's like a badge of
Yeah.
honor now. Like
Exactly.
It's a good memory now.
he's like, do you know what I went through to get these holes in this jeans?
They're really authentic.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you want to hit our guests with our finishing questions?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you guys, like, what advice would you give to someone who wants to break into the professional running sphere?
You're a newer pro.
I think I just think it sounds cliche, but don't give up on yourself. I think a lot of people, including myself, wouldn't have believed I would get to be on the pro level, having to after college run on my own for 5 years. And I never would have thought I would get to where I am. And it's only because I kept running and I kept trying. And I guess no matter how far you get, you'll be proud that you kept trying. So I want to encourage people to keep sticking it out because it's always better than giving up. And it might take you somewhere great. So it sounds, I know that sounds cheesy.
No, I was gonna say going along with that, like you're like I think having fun with it is like one of the most important things. Like not giving up if it's really what you want to do, because like if it's really, really what you love and it's what you want to do and like you have that potential, like just keep having fun with what you're doing and not giving up, because I think a lot of people burn out in the sport because they're so serious about it. And I like obviously we're serious about it. Like, we're obsessed with running. Like it's what we do. We do it every day. It's like the most important part of our day. But at the same time, like if you're not having fun and you're not going out there and like enjoying every bit of it, then yeah, it's not going to be sustainable. I mean, obviously there's days where we're like, oh my God, it's 20 degrees. I don't want to go outside and do this. But like at the end of the day, you're never upset that you went out and trained
If you
hard.
really want to make it to the next level, you should find a training partner who makes you laugh, who you're going to have a good time with. And the number of runs where I'll have to stop because I'm laughing at a joke is like multiple times a week, maybe every day. But like just making it fun, I think for me is surrounding myself with people who are fun.
I agree.
And then you're both. It's like you like running, you like the people you're with, and so you can kind of, I don't know, side by side pursue that same thing together.
And you can even live together if you want and
You
literally do everything together.
Yeah.
And you can have a pipe burst in your apartment together. Well, since we are still like pretty early days in our podcast, we want to know from you guys, who would your dream guest on our podcast be? Who do you want to hear from?
And who would you want to interview?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
this was a question for
dream
you.
guest.
So
Wait, but do you have an idea of who you want?
I want to think of someone who I haven't already heard.
I mean, I feel like this is obvious, but like I want like Kipchoge is like I want to just like listen to him talk and like the things that he says and just like absorb it into like everything he says I feel like is so wise and like he's just the goat. So I mean, if I could have a chance to talk to him, I'd be like, oh my God, tell me everything, share your wisdom.
Make sure every podcast guest picks him as the dream guest, then maybe
then maybe he'll come.
We'll be like, hey, we have this podcast.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I just watched like Breaking 2 again because I just like him a lot, and he like the way that he lives his life like so simply, and he has like probably has so much money and like all this, he has so much star power, and he's like just this humble guy with a family, like no frills. I don't know. I think it's really cool.
Oh yeah, we've had that. I think, did Brian say that Kipchoge? Yeah, like our last episode or 2 episodes ago, I should say. Brian was like, yeah, Kipchoge would be my dream guest to interview. He's like, how do you not pick him? It's like, well, yeah.
What about, you didn't say the CEO of Tracksmith or anything?
Oh, Matt Taylor?
Yeah.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah, that's what I said too. That was one of my picks.
Yeah.
You have to say that because you work for.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think that would be a great interview. This is a random for my Boston days, but Andrea Sorgato, he's a massage therapist in Boston, and he like I feel like he's just on that side of like wellness and health for runners, but he's also quite fast and gets what it takes to be really good. And I always have great conversations with him, and he has wise words. When you said the wisdom of Kipchoge, it reminded me of Andrea Sorgato, who has an amazing Italian accent, and also everything he says sounds like, super encouraging and wise. And I think more people could benefit from his encouragement.
That's cool. Oh, you guys should also get you should get some like Bachelor Nation runners on your podcast.
Yes.
Oh,
I feel like that's a good intersection of like business and like branding.
Matt James.
I ran with him once in Raleigh. He's a really good guy.
They're friends. They're actually friends.
We're besties.
You could get him on the He actually I think he's very I feel like he's distanced himself from Bachelor Nation because he wants to.
He's like serious about running.
He wants to make an impact in other circles. That's what I would say.
Well, we do want to talk to some agents. We should get Josh Cox on as well because he was on The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only ask him questions about The Bachelor.
Yeah, don't ask any questions. Be like, don't even acknowledge that he's an agent. Be like, we're on The Bachelor, right?
Like, I know how you kind of work as an agent, and like that's fine and that's great, but also The Bachelor.
Yeah, exactly. We need to dive deep into
good. That's good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good take. I like that. What would you guys change about the running industry if you could?
Like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Cost is no object.
Just what would you change?
Yeah.
Just
if I had to say, like, for the sake of the planet and what we were talking about, I would change just like all the like consumerism in that side of the sport and kind of increasing more of like the competition and following the actual sport versus like the consumerism product side.
It's not just about the money, but I think just the importance of runners, how much they achieve, how hard they work in comparison to some other, very more popular sports like football, basketball, baseball. And I love running, and I just would like to see it be more that like more people would follow it, be excited about it, and respect and follow the elites in our sport, because they definitely are. I don't know. I think they're really awesome people out there who their stories need to be told too. So I know that's not very realistic because of the money stuff, but I just want I want our
no object here.
Yeah, I want our sports best to be honored and looked up to, like the other really
popular sports.
Like the NFL and NBA.
Well, I mean, it's like so many, like the amount of high school kids that run track. Like everyone runs track and cross country. It's not like it's some like obscure sport that like is only around during the Olympics. I mean, it is an Olympic sport, but I feel like it could be. It's getting there. But there's still a lot of work to
There's
be
a
done.
long way to go. Yeah.
Well, we could change that tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
So no
Sure, we can
problem.
list off all
Yeah.
Yeah, we have more.
Well, great. Now I can say thank you so much for being on and joining us. This has been really, really great.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We had a good time.
Likewise.
Thanks for listening to episode 4 of Running the Show, a podcast exploring the intersection of running and business. A special thanks goes out to our guest host, Whitney Macon, and our guest, Tristin van Ord, this week. If you'd like to follow our guest host and our guest, we'll make sure to put their socials in the show notes for you to follow. And if you'd like to follow Running the Show and keep up to date with us, you can subscribe via any podcast platform you'd like, or via Instagram @running.theshow. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.